Hello, it's Chris Wilkie with the Bourbon Master here. I'm coming to you in full cinematic iPhone-esque fashion here. Let's talk. I had my first mail delivery of bourbon the other day. I'm in a group, Bourbon Real Talk. If you have not taken a look, it's a good group. Randy is the one who runs it. I've actually been writing some blog posts for him. So if you go and read the Allocated or the Women in Whiskey post, that was me. So you get to know the person behind there. But they were doing something where they were basically pairing people up to do shares. I was like, okay, I've never done this. Cool. So I get paired with a guy out of Ohio, and I have literally no idea what I'm doing. So I get the Facebook message like, hey, you have been paired with this guy. Okay, cool. Send him some bourbon. He'll send you some. So number one, could have put this right out there. Mr. Skeptical Pants goes, really, is this guy going to send me anything? That was the first thing that crossed my mind. Number two, hope he's not a serial killer and going to poison me. Just being honest. Got to worry about that kind of stuff in my head sometimes. So that one crossed my mind too. And number three is like, how the heck am I going to ship him my stuff? And if you look at my house, I'm a drinker. So I don't say that in like a drink thing, but I'm not going to hold a bottle back. So if I get a good bottle of booze, I'm going to share it and it's going to be gone. So a lot of times I'm working on a very low inventory of bourbon on any given day because I'm in the middle of sharing and drinking that bottle. So like for instance, we got an Old Forester single barrel from Indiana Liquor Group. That bottle's half gone. We got it on Tuesday or Thursday for a bourbon tasting. I've shared it with 4 different people. We've had 2 different drinks out of it. We run through bourbon here. So I'm not going to sit here and show you my big bourbon wall of collections because there's not one. I drink it. So when I get this message like, hey, you got to send some bourbon, it's like, oh, okay, cool. So I had to order some Boston Rounds. If you have never done that, they're the little, looks like I should be taking some Cambo Finique, if you guys can remember that stuff. But they're the colored bottles or clear bottles. And basically, they hold 2 ounces. And so I had ordered those when I got the message, and they were going to take 2 days to get here. So at the same time, the guy, I think his name's Jason, just goes ahead and just sends me stuff without really any hesitation. It's like, okay, cool. So it showed up at my house, and I had just got the Boston Rounds that same day with the same shipment. So I'm like, okay, dude, I appreciate this. This is awesome. It's a blind tasting. They have A, B, C, and D on them. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to start pouring you something here. So I grabbed him. The ones I sent over were my Old Hammer single barrel here, or cast strength. Let's see, get in my face out of the way. I'll zoom in on it. I sent in the Old Forester single barrel pick. It's a $90 bottle that we got from the tasting. Sent over some Buffalo Trace, and I sent over Old Forester 100. That's what I had on hand. So I marked them blind. My wife helped me write up the sheet of what we were going to be sending them. We actually sent it back in the same exact box to him. So I pull out these 4 little containers, and I have no idea what I'm about to drink. So they're labeled A, B, C, and D, hoping that none of them are poison. I'm kidding, but it's a joke. And I had an envelope that was sealed, and it's like, okay, well, I want to try these. Let's see what happens. So we have a group over last night, or I was over at a place. I took all 4 of the samples and the tasting notes, or the sheet. So we tried it. So A, tried that. I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Out of the bunch, actually, honestly, A was probably my favorite. It had a very good, sweet caramely note. It had a little bit of those baking spices. It wasn't too boozy, but it was really smooth. We tried these all neat, so there was no ice involved with it. I really like that. Second one, it had a lot of spice. Like, honestly, it was very good. It was very boozy, but it had a lot of spice to it. Third one, without even looking at the sheet, I could have told you what it was. There's the way that I kind of describe this product that is always, I can tell you when I taste it, what distillery it's from. And the last one was okay. It kind of tasted just flat, but it wasn't horrible. I've had some way worse bourbons, and I could also sit and drink that. So I pull out the sheet, and here's what we got. First one was a Heaven Hill. Personally, I don't think I've ever had Heaven Hill. It was a very good pour. I would probably go back and buy a bottle of that now at a blind taste test. That was my favorite of the evening. The second one was an E.H. Taylor single barrel. I am a huge fanboy of E.H. Taylor and Eagle Rare. Those are the two out of the bunch. I could care less about a Blanton's. I could care less about anything else. I really like those two. It was my second favorite of the bunch, but it definitely, I like the Heaven Hill in a blind taste test just a little bit more, not knowing what I was going to get. So it wasn't like I was sitting there going, oh yes, I have these 4 bourbons. No, straight up, I had no idea. And I would actually pick the Heaven Hill over the E.H. Taylor. Just a personal preference on that. The third one, I laughed because I was right. I had a Dickel 13-year in the batch, and I could have told you that was a Dickel because it always tastes like someone has some fruity pebbles at the end of a bourbon. Just how I describe it. I will tell you, you taste it. Once you know the taste, if somebody hands you a George Dickel, you will know it's a George Dickel because it tastes like fruity pebbles at the end. It reminds me of a Leinenkugel's beer, the fruit something, berry wise or whatever it was, tastes like fruity pebbles. The last one kind of surprised me. So I went back on a bachelor trip one time and we were passing around a bottle of Old Tub around the bus. Still wasn't a huge, I was a bourbon fan, but I wasn't like a huge bourbon fan at that point. And I thought that stuff was kind of a piece of crap, really. So I ended up tasting this, and it reminded me of some of those like $30, $40 bottles that were just, they tasted MGP at the end. It tastes like it had that nutty finish to it. The ones you'd always go, yeah, I know exactly where this came from. And it was funny because with the group of guys that I was with, they almost identically matched my taste on those. One of them really doesn't care for bourbon, but he tried everything. He drinks it, but he's not like over the top loves it. One of them I had let them see the list ahead of time. They weren't given it in order. I had already done mine, so I was letting them try it. So they knew what was coming, but they didn't know what it was. And they actually thought the E.H. Taylor was the Old Tub, which was really funny in itself. And the guy that I know that likes bourbon was completely blind on this. And I think we were all in agreement. We liked the Heaven Hill first, E.H. Taylor second, and then we were kind of tossed up in the two between the Dickel and the Old Tub. What I learned from this, and being a marketing professor, I should know this already, but there's an inherent bias when you look at a label, price point, or anything out there. I think blind tastings give you a really good sense of take away everything that's marketing. Figure out what actually is in your taste profile, and then taste it for that. Don't go, oh, I know what this is. This is going to be blah, blah, blah. No, just taste the freaking thing. And if you like a cheap one, like a cheap one. It's probably the best thing you can do. It's not going to hurt you to do that. And I think this was really eye-opening. And I think that if you have not done a blind tasting, shoot me a message. Number one, shoot me a message right away. I would be happy to set one up. If you'll send me 4, I'll send you 4. Or we'll send 2 or whatever it's going to be. So I want to extend that offer to you. But then the second one is share with somebody else. Line them up. Have your wife or your husband pour you a few samples from your own collection. Nothing there. I've done this once before with some oak spiral things we put in. It was really eye-opening because I was able to tell the difference between a high end and a low end. But high end and low end is a self-proclaimed and or peer proclaimed thing there. So it may not actually be the best. So that being said, to go with an open mind and an empty stomach, just like my great uncle from Iron Chef used to say, I'm Bobby Filet, and I'm going to put some grenadine on these red onions. I'm going to have a great night. So cheers, Ron. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening. I hope you guys enjoyed my story about the tasting, and I want to do one with you. Leave some comments below. Shoot me an email. Go to thebourbonmaster.com. Send me something. I want to be a fun person that shares with you guys. So do the same with me. We'll make it happen. Have a good night.